vikramana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. So Krishna says, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So, now the comparison here is it's spiritual activity. So Krishna's talking about spiritual activity, that there's no loss or diminution. So whatever we do in spiritual life, whatever credits we get, those are eternally in our spiritual bank balance. Right? So for every mantra, for every Hare Krishna mantra that you chant, for every Sunday Love Feast program that you attend, for every donation that you give for Gita Mandir, for every preparation that you cook and bring for prasadam distribution, for every book you distribute, right? Everything that you do in spiritual activity, you get an eternal credit in your spiritual bank account, which is never lost. Not even at the time of death. For as many lifetimes as we have to be here, it'll be there. And we'll pick up where we left off in our next life, right? So whatever spiritual advancement you make in this lifetime, even if you don't make it all the way back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime for whatever reason, if you have to take birth again, but you'll pick up where you left off. There's no loss. But material activity, on the other hand, it's a total loss, right? It's like, you may get a very high education, you may get a PhD, and then at the end of your life, you leave this world and then you have to take birth again, and then what happened to your PhD? It's gone. You have to start again from ABC, 1, 2, 3, right? Goo goo, gaga, mama, dada. You have to start again. Nobody knows about your PhDs and your multiple postdocs and, all the education that you got in your last life, and you don't know anything about it either. So, yeah, material activity is problematic in that it's temporary. We invest so much time and energy into it, and then in the next life it's just gone. So in that sense, if we think about the picture of the apples is good, because if we think about who we are, right? Who we are is that we're souls. We're not this body. We're the soul inside the body, and the soul is eternal. So we are going to live on. We are going to live in whatever situation we're in. We are going to be alive somewhere, right? Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor anyone. We are eternal spiritual beings. But this body is like the apple on the material activity side. Everything material is like that. Material body, as some of you may be starting to experience, if you get like over 50, the body is starting to, it's starting to dwindle. It's starting to fall apart, and it gets to the point where it's never going to be the way it was before. Like that rotten apple is never going to become the bright green apple again, and sooner or later it's going to be gone. So the same thing with all of our material achievements. They're all just like that apple, just like this material body. They're all going to just dwindle, and they're going to be gone, and they're not going to come back in the same way as they were previously. So in that sense, you could say that spiritual activity is 100% success, and material activity is 100% failure. Because if you look at it, material activity, let's say we start a new project, right? Let's say someone who's a total materialist, and they start a project, they want to earn money, they want to, become famous or whatever, they want to produce some stunning work of art or something like that, or architecture, or right? They want to do something wonderful in this material world for material purposes. So if they start the project and somehow or other it just bombs out halfway through, right? They couldn't keep it up. It was required more resources than they had, or there was some crisis in the family. They just couldn't go on with it. Then it's all just a waste, right? Whatever they've invested into it, it's kind of like, all right, I'll just write it off as a loss, right? And even if they were successful, even if they do achieve what they set out to achieve, but still, it's not really going to make them happy, right? We know people who were very successful materially, they're very wealthy, they're very famous, but they're not happy. In fact, they're some of the most miserable people on the planet, right? Because they put everything into that, and they sacrifice so many other things for the sake of their material achievement, and then the material achievement didn't bring them happiness, and the things that actually might have brought them some happiness, they sacrificed on the way. Whereas spiritual activity, if you start it, even if you don't finish it, right? Let's say, right, so here in Frisco, you want to build a temple, right? You have this beautiful vision for the Gita Mandir, glorious project. So let's say in your lifetime, it doesn't happen. I mean, let's hope it does, but let's say it doesn't, just in case, Even if it does, so you spent your whole life, thinking about this, making strategic plans, fundraising, researching about materials, speaking to engineers and architects and builders, and making the plans, making the drawings, and let's say you don't see it in your lifetime, or something happens, the economy changes, there's a huge crash, and you have to go bankrupt and sell the land, and it just doesn't happen. I mean, things happen, right? Things happen. But everything that you did to make that still a success. Like all of the effort that you put into it, it's all eternally to your credit. And in Krishna's mind, it's whether the project was a success or failure externally, it was all a success. Because Krishna says that in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. So our place is to try, right? We need to endeavor to please Krishna, perform spiritual activities to try to do something wonderful for Krishna. And by that attempt, that's our success. The endeavor itself is success. And whether it happens or it doesn't happen, that's up to Krishna. So if the result anyway is up to Krishna, then it wouldn't be fair for Krishna to say, well, you're only going to get spiritual credit for this if the result happens, because the result's not under our control, right? So it wouldn't be right for Krishna to assess us on something which is totally out of our control, which is totally up to him, right? So what he bases our spiritual success on is the effort that we put into it and the attitude, right? The service attitude, that we want to humbly serve, we want to help others, we want to facilitate others' spiritual life by this project. So that's to our credit. And whether it happens in our lifetime, whether it happens at all, that's inconsequential for the sake of our spiritual advancement. Of course, it has big consequences for the community and the future of, spreading Krishna consciousness in this area, but that's up to Krishna. Right? But in any case, it's 100% success. Whereas material activity, whether it's a so-called success or so-called failure, it's still a failure. Because it doesn't make us happy, it doesn't get the Lord's attention, and we can't take any of those results with us. Yeah. There's actually a beautiful verse from the Bhagavatam spoken by Narada Muni, where he says that if somebody gives up their material duties for the sake of worshiping the Lord, and even if that person falls down due to immaturity, even if they stop doing spiritual activities after some time, still there's no loss. But on the other hand, if somebody does their material duties perfectly, but doesn't worship the Lord, then that person doesn't gain anything. So that's right there in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:5-17. You can look it up. Narada when he speaks. So he's basically saying the same exact thing here. And then, here's another hidden perk of spiritual life. So this is the next verse from Bhagavad Gita 2:41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kudunandana bahu shaka yanantascha buddhayo vyavisayanam. Krishna says, those who are on this path are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. So this is to help our understanding here, that with spiritual activity, there's one point of focus, right? We're just trying to please Krishna. And everything that we do in our life, all the different aspects of our life and our activities, are all just going towards that, right? They're all integrated and aligned and focused on Krishna, on pleasing Krishna. So whatever we do, whether it's school, whether it's work, whether it's, our sadhana or our family, everything is just focused on Krishna. We're trying to do it in Krishna consciousness for the pleasure of Krishna. And because we're trying to do it for the pleasure of Krishna, then Krishna helps, and all those things become so much easier. Whereas with material activity, our attention gets splayed out in all different directions. Right? Like the guy there trying to spin the plates. You're trying to please your boss, and please your husband or wife, and please the children, and please whoever, whoever it is. So many different people that we have to try to satisfy in life, right? And sometimes it seems like an impossible task, and we end up spreading our energy too thin, and we end up not pleasing anyone. Right? So you try to please everyone, you end up not pleasing anyone. But if you try to please Krishna, then by Krishna's grace, everyone actually becomes happy. So you might wonder how that's true, because what we see, right, in reality is that sometimes somebody might try to, really get inspired about Krishna consciousness and spiritual life and be like, you know what, I just want to be a full-time devotee, I just want to serve Krishna, everything that I do. And then there may be some objections, right, from family members, from materialistic family members. Like when my husband wanted to become a devotee, his family was very upset about it. He's from Brazil, and their whole family's Catholics, so they thought it was very strange. They thought it was, they didn't understand it at all. They were very worried about him. Actually, when he left home, and they have a big family. Family all lives in one city. They all live very near. They're always, meeting and greeting and doing things together. And so he went off to another city, like hundreds and hundreds of miles away. And he was living in the mountains. This was before he met devotees even, but he had this idea that I need to live a spiritual life. I don't want to do like what everyone's doing. So he was living in this hut in a mountain, and somehow he had gotten the Bhagavad Gita. It was the Bhagavad Gita that inspired him to do this, but he just didn't know he didn't know how to find devotees. But he had his Bhagavad Gita, and he read it enough to know that materialistic life is useless, and I need to be spiritual. So he takes his Bhagavad Gita, and he goes to the mountains. He's living there in some hut. He has no electricity, no running water. He doesn't have a vehicle. He has a horse. He's riding a horse down into the village to buy food and things. So that's the life he was living. And his parents, they were so worried about him. He's going to die up there in the mountains. So they came to visit him one time. And in the meantime, he had seen in the Bhagavad Gita, there are pictures, right? So he had painted. I don't know how he did this, because he's not an artist. Like, I never saw him draw anything except stick figures in 21 years of marriage. But anyways, somehow he painted a nice picture of Krishna, and he had it hanging on the wall there of his hut. So his parents came up, and they spent days there, and they were just begging and pleading, please, my son, come home, please, what are you doing? You're ruining your life, there's no future in this, how are you even living here in this lonely existence? They're giving him every reason in the book to come home. And he was just, my husband's very, when he puts his mind on something, it's like, that's it, so he was just not having it. He was not going to bend at all. It was just iron set in concrete, it was resolved. So they were getting really distressed, really frustrated. And then after 3-4 days of pleading with him, then one day his father came in and he said, all right, son, we're going back home. And then he's like, oh, okay, great, it was nice to have you, whatever, he said some pleasantries. But then he was curious, so he's like, you changed your tune so quickly, what happened? You were wanting me to come, and now all of a sudden you're just totally peaceful and just going without me. And so the father said that, he said, well, we were sitting here in your room, and you had gone out, and so we were alone, and we were just talking, and we were praying, and we were really praying to God, to do what's right for you, and inspire you to change your mind or whatever. And he said that picture of Krishna on the wall spoke to me. It's crazy, right? Wow. The painting of Krishna, he said, Krishna spoke to me, and he told me, don't worry, I'm God, the same God that you worship, the same God who is the father of Jesus that you worship in your church, and I assure you that your son is going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I'm taking care of him. And my husband was like, that never happened to me. That never happened to me. And, in like 35 years of practicing Krishna consciousness, that still didn't happen to him, but somehow his father got that mercy. So it shows how, that when we focus on Krishna, then all the other aspects of our life become nice. All problems become solved because Krishna helps. He's God. He's the supreme controller. What's difficult for him? There's nothing difficult for him. Prabhupada would say, like he's in Africa, there are so many elephants, and they need to eat like 1 ton of food every day or something like that. And they're not working, they're not struggling, they're not stressing out about money and all these things. And somehow they're getting their food. So he said, and you think that if you're going to devote your life to Krishna, that Krishna's not going to feed you? He's not going to give you a roof over your head? Do you think he's ungrateful to his servants? No, that's one of Krishna's qualities, is he's very grateful, and he gives us more than we give him, right? Infinitely more. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this nice analogy of the tree, watering the root of the tree. So those little boxes on the tree are all the different needs that we have in our life, or all the people that we need to please, or all the goals that we want to achieve. So those are like the leaves on the tree. And if you have a tree and you're thinking, okay, I want this tree to grow, I need to water it, and then you go and you get on a ladder and you're trying to water every leaf individually, and you're moving your ladder around and you're extending your ladder, and you're trying to, you'll go crazy, right? It'll take you all day, and it's very dangerous, and you might miss some leaves, and those leaves are going to die. And even if you water all of the leaves on the tree that way, there's a problem with that. Fundamental problem is that trees don't absorb water through the leaves. You have to put the water on the root. And the good thing is that it's very easy. You just pour the water on one place at the base of the tree, the water goes down, and all the leaves, all the branches, all the twigs, all the flowers, everything gets watered that way. So Krishna is the root of the tree. And if we just please Krishna, then everything in our life is going to work out well by Krishna's grace. So whatever those boxes are for you, whether it's your work or your family or your school or your whatever, then everything is going to become good. Prabhupada said that material well-being follows spiritual well-being. And so when our spiritual life is good, then our material life will be good, because Krishna will facilitate. So then, here's another hidden perk of spiritual activity is Yagyartat karmanon yacha lokoyam karma vandanaha tad artam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. Krishna says that work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and that way you will always remain free from bondage. So, material activity gives us a lot of karma. As soon as we do something that's, just mundane activity that we're doing for mundane reasons, not in Krishna consciousness, then we're getting karma. So if we do something good, we get good karma, which means we're going to have some good results to enjoy at some point in life. And if we do bad things, then we're going to get bad karma, which is going to bring us suffering at some point in this life or the next, or both. But whether good or bad, that karma binds us to the material world. So even if we just do material good deeds, right, like feeding the poor, or opening up a hospital, or something like that, doing some mundane welfare work, even if it's a good deed, still we have to take birth again in the material world just to get the good results of our good deeds, because that's what karma is. Whether good or bad, it binds us to the material world because it's material activity. Material activity means material world, right? Which means we get another material body and more material suffering, right? So if you look at the guy there with the ball and chain, the interesting thing about that drawing is that it's not actually like locked onto his leg or something. He's holding it, right? He's holding it in his hand. He's like gripping onto it and dragging it around. So that's how we are, right? In the material world, where we make our own choices, right? We choose to do material activity. It's like I'm holding on to my karma. At any point, we can let go of it, right? By doing spiritual activity. So the good thing about spiritual activity is that, one, it doesn't cause any more karma to accrue, right? It's called akarma. In other words, it doesn't give us karma at all. And the other thing, the amazing thing about it, is that it frees us from whatever karma we've already accrued, right? So we come into this lifetime with so much karma from our previous lifetimes and all those activities and all the things that we've done. We've got like a huge stockpile of karma, just waiting to happen, good, bad, or whatever. And when we perform devotional service to Krishna, then Krishna burns that whole stockpile to ashes. It's all gone. So all of those things that we were supposed to suffer from our karma, we don't have to suffer anymore. So spiritual activity is very good. That's one of the hidden perks, right? That it frees us from our karma, it doesn't give us any more karma, and it basically puts us in a position where we are eligible for liberation from this material existence, from the cycle of repeated birth and death in the material world. So, yeah, these are just summarizing here. That spiritual activity is everlasting, whereas material activity is temporary. Spiritual activity, 100% success. Material activity, 100% failure. Spiritual activity, there's a single point of focus, right? So we can just be very focused, unified, our life is integrated. Whereas material activity, we're all over the place, and it's very stressful and complicated. Spiritual activity frees us from karma, but material activity binds us in karma and binds us in the cycle of repeated birth and death in this material world. So then, that should be a good incentive to do spiritual activity, right? So then, what is spiritual activity? What are some of the things that we can do to reap these hidden perks? Is that your hand up?
Yes.
What's the spiritual activity?
I think one thing that we could do is go serve Krishna at his temples, like Mataji, maybe donate, maybe do some kirtan, anything that we can do to please Krishna.
Okay, awesome, yeah, great examples. So we can go there and do kirtan, that's definitely spiritual activity. We donate, do service. Yeah, thank you, brilliant. Any other spiritual activities? Chant Hare Krishna, doing japa, right? Wake up every morning, get your beads out, chant some rounds. Good. Arti, offering arti to the deity, right? Any kind of deity worship, taking care of the deities. Offering food, yeah, taking prasadam, distributing prasadam. Books, what about them? Distributing books. Reading the books also. Yeah, so we should read the books like Bhagavad Gita, distribute the books, share that knowledge with others. Kirtan, yeah, kirtaniya sadahari. Try to do kirtan as often as possible. Whatever you're doing, whether you're driving your car or mowing the lawn or in the shower or in the temple, do kirtan. And that's the main process for this age. Right?
Serve the devotees.
Serve the devotees, yeah, that's very important. I was giving class on Chaitanya Charitamrita this morning in Radhakalachandji Temple, and it was all about that. It was all about how King Prataparudra, Lord Chaitanya, was refusing to meet with him. But then Ramananda Roy, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, worked for the government. Prataparudra was the king, and Ramananda Roy was his employee. So the king, Prataparudra, he facilitated Ramananda Roy. He said, I'm going to give you a full, basically indefinite leave from your work. You don't have to do anything. You can just go to Jagannath Puri and serve the Lord, and I'm going to continue to give you your full salary. So when Ramananda Roy heard about that, when Ramananda Roy told Lord Chaitanya about this amazing arrangement that the king had made for him, Lord Chaitanya said, oh, because he has served you, because he's dedicated to serving you, my dear devotee, certainly Krishna will bestow his mercy. In other words, certainly I will accept him as my servant. And then later we see that the whole thing happened and Lord Chaitanya embraced Maharaj Pratapurja. So by serving the devotee, by facilitating, helping devotees in different ways, then that's the key to becoming, very dear to Krishna. Visiting dhams, going on pilgrimage, right? That's one of the 5 potent processes that Rupa Goswami gives us is Mathura Vas, living in a holy place, even a visit fulfills that requirement, right? That we stay there even for a few days. Go to Vrindavan, go to Mayapur, different places. Remember Krishna, hear Krishna Katha. Yes. Good. So many things. Yeah. And another thing is that even, see, the great thing about bhakti, devotional service and Krishna consciousness, is that there are direct services that we can do, right? Like reading books, distributing books, kirtan, going to a holy dham. But then bhakti also gives us the way to transform our material activities into spiritual activities, right? Because after hearing all about material activities, some of you might be getting a little depressed, thinking, oh my God, I spend most of my life at work and doing this and that. I'm doomed. I'm just a failure, right? But there's good news for people who need to be busy in this world, and that is that we can transform material into spiritual. And Krishna talks about that in the Bhagavad Gita as well. There's this beautiful verse here, 424. Brahmarpanam brahmahavir brahmagno brahmanahutam brahmaiva tena gantavyam brahmakarma samadhina. So the word Brahma here is repeated. So Brahma in this, it means spiritual. So he's saying that, let's do the translation. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So that's a little hard to understand maybe. But if you look at the actual word for word, they're giving the context of like a fire yajna, right? So in Vedic times they would offer these fire yajnas, and we do that sometimes for initiation ceremonies or special events. So he's saying that, in the fire yajna we're dealing with material things, where there's wood, there's fire, there's, ghee that you're pouring on there. So he's saying that if you're doing it for Krishna, which, that's the definition of yajna, is we're doing something, a sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord. So whatever you're doing for Krishna, whatever you're offering, right? So he says that Brahma Arpanam, the offering becomes spiritual. Why? Because the Supreme is there, because you're offering to the Supreme. And he says Havi, so that means the butter or the ghee, Havi or Brahma. The ghee becomes spiritual. And then Agno, Brahma Agno, the Agni, the fire, also becomes spiritual. And then the person who is offering it into the fire also is spiritual. And the goal is that you go to the spiritual world. So basically whatever we do for the pleasure of Krishna becomes spiritualized. If you take just regular butter from the supermarket, you make ghee and you offer that in your yajna, that butter becomes spiritual. The fire becomes spiritual. So if you think about it in terms of work, right? You go to your job and you have, paraphernalia that you use at your workplace. There's the workplace itself, there's your office, all these things. There's you yourself who are, doing it. And so if you can connect that work to Krishna, right? That while you're working, you're thinking, all right, by the grace of Krishna, I have this job, so that I have a means of livelihood, which I need in this material world. And by the grace of Krishna, I have the skill set, the education, the qualification to be able to do this work. And by the grace of Krishna, I have some money that's coming in. And so let me, give back, right? Krishna's given me so many gifts so that I can do this. And so let me give back by giving some of my income, some portion of my income to my temple, to spiritual activities. And so then while you're working, you're thinking, okay, I'm not just working and then also at home, right, you're making your home into a temple. And you're trying to support your family in Krishna consciousness. So basically, all of your income is going for Krishna conscious things. Right? You're paying your rent or your mortgage for your house, which you've converted into a temple by having your altar there, and you're going to the supermarket, you're buying food, but you're cooking that food and offering it all to Krishna, so then that's also for Krishna, and you're training your children in Krishna consciousness, bringing them to spiritual programs and Sunday school, and helping them become devotees, so that's also Vaishnav Seva, right? And so everything that you're doing at home is also Krishna conscious. So even just paying your bills is a spiritual activity, and the money. So while you're working, you're thinking, all right, I'm maintaining my home as a temple. I'm maintaining my family who are Vaishnavas. I'm giving donation also that we can have a nice spiritual community and a beautiful temple for that. So while you're working, you're just thinking, this is just all for Krishna, right? Everything is just going to spiritual activities for Krishna. So your job becomes spiritual activity. That's the amazing thing about bhakti, is that we don't have to give anything up. We just have to change the quality. And in the purport to this verse, Prabhupada says, matter dovetailed for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. Okay? So actually everything is originally spiritual, right? Because everything is Krishna's energy. He says, Daivi Yesha Gunamayi Mamamaya Daratya. It says, Daivi Yesha Guna. He says this divine energy of mind consisting of the three modes of material nature. So he's saying even the material energy is divine. Why? Because Krishna's saying it's mine. This is my energy. There's nothing material about me, so it becomes material when we separate it from Krishna. That's the problem. That's what makes just like you take a coal out of a fire and it just becomes like a rock, it's just useless. But as long as you keep it in the fire, it's glowing, it has all the qualities of fire, it's hot and it can ignite other things. So when we separate Krishna's energies from Krishna, then it becomes material. But when we bring it back to Krishna, back in touch with Krishna, back engaged in Krishna's service, then it becomes again spiritual. So that's the good news. We don't have to, in bhakti, in devotional service, we don't reject anything, we just connect everything. And that's what we need to. So that's our program, and that's what we need to meditate on, right? In our individual lives, we all have our individual circumstances. So we just need to put some thought into it, like, okay, whatever I'm doing, how can I connect this to Krishna? How can I do it for the pleasure of Krishna? And so, I went through a few things here that are kind of common life factors for most of us. So there's work. So then we donate a portion of our income to Krishna. There's school, right? Some of you are in school. Try to get as much knowledge and skills as you can. Try to learn as well as you can so that you can become, so you can use those skills in Krishna's service. So you can become very highly qualified and competent and do amazing things for Krishna in the world. And then our food, right? Everyone has to eat. So offer food to Krishna and take prasadam. And even by eating, our eating becomes a spiritual activity. By eating, we make spiritual advancement. Okay? Prabhupada says you can eat your way back to Godhead. Haribol. That's like everyone's favorite devotional service, right? Taking prasadam. And then family, we do spiritual activities together. There's one purport in the Bhagavad Gita where Prabhupada talks about that for devotee families, you chant the holy names together. You can sit down in the morning and do one round of japa before everyone goes off to school or work. Even the kids can do that. And you come home in the evening and you do a little kirtan together. You read Bhagavad Gita after dinner. You discuss. And then you can also invite devotees over to your house for prasadam and have a little kirtan, have a little reading, take prasadam, like that. So Prabhupada said if you do those 4 things, family life will be wonderful. Right? Your family life will be Krishna conscious and it won't be a cause of material frustration. And also, there's this saying, Christians say, the family that prays together stays together. Right? So when we do spiritual activities together and pray together and chant together, do kirtan together, study together, then that keeps us together. Right? It's sometimes we talk about how family life is binding. Like in the Bhagavatam, sometimes there are some negative statements about family life that is a cause of bondage, right? But then the Grihastha Vision team, and they talk about, I think they wrote a book called The Bonds That Free Us. Right? So if our family members are all devotees and we're doing spiritual activities, then these relationships, these deep, lasting, loving relationships actually boost us spiritually and actually lead towards our liberation. And then health, right? We need to look after our health. So we don't want to just work out to, get abs and, really, become physically attractive to the opposite sex or something. But we want to maintain our body and also our mind, our mental health, because this body is a very valuable instrument to use in Krishna's service, right? It's through this body that I can do anything. So I want to keep my body healthy so I can serve Krishna with this body for a long time. And then social life, we all want to be together and have fun and go to parties and events and socialize and recreation. So do that with devotees, right? Make friendships with devotees, and then when we get together, it'll be easy. It'll just be easy to be Krishna conscious. Whereas materialistic friends are always kind of challenging our values, trying to push us to do things that we're not comfortable with, and bring us to environments where, there's like all kinds of things going on, eating intoxication and so forth, and it's like, what am I doing here? Right? So, the more we can make friendships with devotees, the more we can have fun in Krishna consciousness. We can get together and do kirtan, or we can go to the park and play sports together, but we know that we have a picnic, it's going to be all prasadam, it's going to be all nice, kirtans going on in the background, and like that. So, and then we have this nice verse from Rupa Goswami, just to close here, that anasaktasya vishayan yataham upayunjataha nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So this is Rupa Goswami's definition of renunciation. So he says real renunciation is when one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts anything in relation to Krishna. Then one is rightly situated above possessiveness. So this is what it means to be renounced in Krishna consciousness. It's not that we have to give everything away and leave our families and quit our jobs and get rid of everything. But no, we keep what we have and we use it in Krishna's service. Without attachment, that we're not attached to things or relationships for our personal enjoyment, but we're just in a detached way, using everything very responsibly, very caring and conscientiously in the service of Krishna. Okay, so I will close there and open it up for any questions or comments. What do you all think about this? Oh, do you have your hand up?
Yes, but I don't think I'm allowed to share examples. Is that okay?
Whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Okay. So I got an idea from this. So I think Krishna made these perks because he wanted us to be motivated to do service. That's why he made all these perks with Krishna consciousness. Just an idea.
Yes, you're very intelligent. That's very good. Yeah, Krishna is trying to convince us. Right? The whole Bhagavad Gita is basically like a persuasive, a persuasive speech to try to convince us to stop doing material activities and start doing spiritual activities, right? To transform our material activities. Right, because it's on a battlefield and Arjuna is supposed to fight. He's supposed to be fighting in a war, right? And Arjuna's thinking, this is terrible, right? I don't want to do this horrible material activity. And so Krishna's saying, look, if you just do it for me in Krishna consciousness, it's not a material activity, and then it's no longer horrible. It's actually glorious, and it's going to bring out glory for the world, glory for your dynasty. We'll have a pure devotee, Maharaj Yudhisthira as the king, and religious principles are going to, flourish in society, and everything is going to be good, and I'm going to be right there in your chariot helping you, and you're going to win, right? Yes. So, yeah. So that's a good example of how, okay, somebody has material vision and they're thinking they're doing something material and they're miserable. Right? He was actually very depressed and distressed in the beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra because he had material consciousness. But then Krishna showed him, explained to him, taught him how to spiritualize his fighting, and then Arjuna became inspired, right? And everything worked out well by Krishna's grace. So the same for us. We have our battles, we have our struggles, we have our challenges, and if we do them for Krishna, then everything's going to be glorious. Yes.
Mataji, thank you for a very beautiful presentation and lecture. I just have, maybe based on your experience, the challenge between spiritual and material, like we perceive the benefits of material activities or see them with our senses right away. That attracts us, more compared to spiritual hidden perks, activities. Are there like ways to kind of perceive those benefits in our, current lives, so we kind of, find more tangible motivation to pursue that path in a more resolute manner?
Yeah, good. Yeah, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Rajaguyam, Rajavijja, Rajaguyam, Pavitram idam uttamam, Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam susukam kartamamyayam. So Pratyaksha means direct experience. Right? So Krishna says, yes, there are ways that you can directly perceive how devotional service is benefiting you, how spiritual activities are benefiting you. So what those are is, you probably experienced some of them already yourself because you're here. So as soon as we start coming to Krishna consciousness and seriously practicing, spiritual activities of devotional service, then we notice some significant changes in our lives, right, in our consciousness. And first thing that happens is that we start losing interest in material activities, right? Like things that we enjoyed before, like maybe, you have people who enjoyed eating non-vegetarian food or going out to bars and clubs and drinking and, dancing and those kinds of things and those kinds of venues. They lose interest in those things, lose interest in going out to, restaurants and watching mundane movies and those things. And that happens very soon, right? Like gradually, but almost immediately. As soon as we start getting serious about Krishna consciousness, we just kind of lose interest in all those really mundane things that are based on materialistic values and that degrade us. So that's Krishna's mercy, is that he saves us by giving us a distaste for things that degrade us. And then at the same time, another thing that happens is that we get a taste for spiritual things, right? Maybe previously, most people who are doing material things all the time who are not devotees, they're not interested at all in God. They don't want to know, and they just don't want to go, they don't, maybe they drag themselves to church on Sunday or to temple because there's a sense of duty or family pressure or something like that, or desperation, they just go to ask for something material or something. But when we actually start doing spiritual activities, we get a taste for Krishna consciousness. We want to do more, right? We feel like happy. We start feeling blissful, doing spiritual activities. And we want to go to the temple because we want to see Krishna. We want to go there and experience his presence and just, receive his merciful glance, connect with him in a deep way, offer our hearts. And so we get a taste for spiritual activities, which impels us. It's so sweet, that's rasa. That's what rasa is. It's that taste that impels us to go forward, to keep going, to do more spiritual activities. And the bhakti rasa has many flavors. So we experience a variety of different flavors. It's not just the same all the time, right? Even though we chant the same mantra all the time, it's never the same, right? It's always a different experience. Every kirtan is different. Every time we read the Bhagavad Gita, even if we're reading the same verse and purport again, we get something new. We get some fresh insight, that's directly what we need to hear in our current situation. So we lose a taste for material life, we get a taste for spiritual life. And another thing is that the qualities like the our conditioning starts to get washed away, right? Like, let's say if someone has anger issues, right? Or they're struggling with lust or something, and those things become very problematic, and they're trying to have nice relationships with people, and they just burn people out right, left, and center, or give people the wrong idea, or creep people out, or whatever. These narcissists cause all kinds of problems in our relationships. And then when you come to Krishna consciousness, it's like those things start to subside. They start to just, be eroded away. And before you know it, sometimes we don't even notice because it's so gradual, but before you know it, you're like, hey, somebody just said something to me, and years ago, I would have gotten really upset. I probably would have lost my temper right there. But somehow it didn't bother me. Like, I changed, I don't have, like, anger issues anymore. Or, whatever, these greed and envy and illusion, all these things go away. Yeah, illusion is a big one. We start to see the world differently, right? We start to see through the glitter and the gloss, on the surface of this material world, because the material world, Maya, presents itself in a way that looks very attractive, and people in the world are actually convinced that if I just buy this, if I just sign up for this whatever, I'm going to be happy with this material object, and somehow this material object is going to fulfill my desires and make all my dreams come true, or this material relationship or whatever is going to, I'm just going to float away on a cloud now and be happy forever, happy ever after. So, in the material world, people are convinced that material things can make them happy. But when we come to spiritual life, we see through all of that. We can actually see things as they are. And we can see like all the things that Krishna is explaining. We don't need to be like just theoretically convinced because we read it in Bhagavad Gita, but we can actually see with our eyes. We get spiritual vision to see the follies and the farce, of material civilization. And then at the same time, with that spiritual vision, we can start to see everyone as spirit souls, right? We can see everyone as dear to Krishna, and we start getting nice qualities like compassion and empathy. And these things really make our relationships very sweet. We can start having spiritually based relationships where we support each other in spiritual growth. And so many ways. Mm-hmm. I could go on and on about it. But, and then what to speak of our relationship with Krishna, right? As we go on in spiritual activities, Krishna starts revealing himself more and more. In Bhagavad Gita 4:11, he says, Yayatam mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. He says, as all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So how does he reward us? He rewards us by revealing himself to us. So in the beginning, we might be like, okay, there's a God out there somewhere, I'm not sure who he is. Maybe it's Jesus, maybe it's Shiva, maybe it's, a lot of people don't know who God is, right? Maybe it's just some impersonal, divine love, or, some energy. Maybe it's the universe, right? People have all these half-baked conceptions of who God is or what God is. And as we actually start to do spiritual activities, it becomes clear, that there is a God, that God is a person. Yes, he has his Brahman feature, which is all pervasive. He also has his Paramatma feature, which is in my heart. And he also has his personal feature as Bhagavan Sri Krishna, with his spiritual form and his spiritual personality and all of his transcendental qualities and pastimes. And so then you understand, okay, God is Krishna. And then you start worshiping Krishna more, chanting the names of Krishna with more love, because you're like, wow, Krishna's really God. And then he reveals himself more. The more we do, the more he reveals himself. And then you start to really understand the glories of his name, and you start to really feel attraction to his qualities, and you feel enlivened by hearing his pastimes. They're not just stories. It's like, this is reality. This is the spiritual reality. And this is where I'm supposed to be too. I'm supposed to be somewhere, in those pastimes. I have a relationship with Krishna too. What is my relationship? What is my specific relationship? I know I'm his servant, but who am I? right? What is my specific relationship? Which rasa am I in? What do I do for Krishna in the spiritual world eternally? And then as we keep doing spiritual activities, these things become revealed to us gradually, gradually. And then we get the whole complete picture. Who is Krishna? Who am I? What am I doing? What is this world? What is its relationship? It all becomes very clear. So these are some even more hidden perks of spiritual activities, right? And these are ways that we can assess our progress. Yes, Prabhu.
You mentioned about Yukta Vairagya,
Mm-hmm.
and you see that Prabhupada took a lot of this from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, and this was very unique of Srila Prabhupada, that he gave this to us, because we never had that understanding. In general, the understanding of Vairagya means to give up
Yeah.
everything. But Yukta Vairagya was something, what Rupa Goswami has spoken, and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj first actually showed it, and then Srila Prabhupada actually exemplified it. So, if, just for everyone, if you can give some examples of this Yukta Vairagya principle, and again, another thing is that there are certain boundaries also there, because if we cross that boundary, then it becomes more sense enjoyment rather than
Yeah.
the Vairagya. So if you can just throw some light on that so that we can actually understand it more better.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Very nice question. Yeah, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was like a master of Yukta Vairagya, right? And as a sannyasi, and I mean, he was a lifelong sannyasi, Naishtaki brahmachari, sannyasi. And yet, he engaged with the world, right? He made a point of doing that. He didn't have to, but he made a point of doing it because he wanted to show this principle of Yukta Vairagya. And so, he rode around in expensive cars, and he wore, his fancy clothes, his jacket, that was stitched and buttons and everything. Sannyasis didn't do those things in that time. They wouldn't wear sewn cloth. They would only travel on foot. So he used all of these things, and he would use machinery. For example, the printing press. Right? He put the emblem of the printing press on his logo for the Gaudiya Mat, right? Because he was so into printing press. So he used machines like that, but everything in Krishna's service. And he took a great risk in doing that, because a lot of other Vaishnavas, they actually criticized him a lot. Like one day he rolled into Radhakund in his car. He rolled into Vrindavan in his nice car, and these caste Goswamis who were managing the temples, the Vrindavan temples, they closed the doors, they closed the altar, and they wouldn't give him darshan of the deities, because they thought, oh, this is not right. He's not a real sannyasi. This is bogus, So he took the path less traveled, and he put his neck on the line for the sake of Yukta Vairagya. But he did so much, right? And of course it was he who inspired Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada really took it to the next level, right, with Yukta Vairagya, traveling to other countries, getting on airplanes. Prabhupada circumambulated, he flew around the planet 14 times in 11 years. How many flights he took? I mean, he probably flew more in those 11 years than some of us will in our lifetime. And Prabhupada was using everything, dictaphones, recorders, and cars, and if Prabhupada was here, he'd be using mobile phone and internet and social media. He would be putting out Instagram posts, and Prabhupada was really he would go on TV. He would do TV interviews and all these things. So for Prabhupada, it's like whatever spreads Krishna consciousness, we need to use. These things are Krishna's things. Right? They are not material. This is Krishna's energy, and it's meant to be used in Krishna's service. So, yeah. So then you're saying that there are boundaries. Yeah. So we can misuse the principle of Yukta Vairagya. Right? We can think, well, I really want to have a fancy car, I've always dreamed of having this kind of car, and how cool I'm gonna look, cruising down in the summertime with my windows and my roof off on the convertible, and everyone's gonna see me and be like, bro, wow. Look at that car. People are gonna be like turning green with envy when they see me with my car. But I'm a devotee, so let's do this right. So I'm gonna get in the car and I'm gonna drive it to the temple. Yeah, I'm gonna bring my family to the temple every Sunday, and we're gonna go out on book distribution sometimes, and load the books in the car. So yeah, I'm gonna connect it to Krishna, and I'm gonna have my car. Perfect. So okay, that's okay. It's not bad, but yeah. But still, the main reason you want the car is not to go out and book distribution to the temple, right? The main reason is because you want to have the look. So we have to question our motives, right? Do I really need that, $200,000 car, or could I just get, a car that does the job, right? A car that is solid, reliable transportation. Right? So we can, sometimes reflect on our decisions when we make, major investments in things. And then also there's some things that we maybe can't connect to Krishna, right? If somebody has an occupation as a butcher, for example, or they own a nightclub or something, it's like some things can't be dovetailed in Krishna's service. And even if you are giving some donations from your butcher shop, it's like you can't say that that's spiritual activity. You probably need to get a different job, something a little more sattvic. So. Yeah, in the same way that we offer, vegetarian food to Krishna, but we can't offer meat to Krishna and think, I'm offering it to Krishna, it's prasadam. So we have Krishna's a person, and they're just like, let's say you have a child who's a fussy eater, right? So you give him something that he doesn't like, he's not going to eat. So you have to give him other things that he's going to eat. So he's going to reject some things. So Krishna's a person. He also has his tastes. So we have to offer Krishna things that he likes, and he will accept. Not just that, all right, Krishna, I want this, so you have to accept it, just to purify it. So, that's not how it works. We want to try to keep Krishna in the forefront, right? The main thing is trying to please Krishna, and then we can use things to please Krishna. And not that the main thing is what I want, and I'll try to just connect that somehow to Krishna, whether he likes it or not. So, yeah. So Krishna should be happy, and we can be happy also. And it's a win-win. But most things we can use in Krishna's service. And even if we do have some attachment to something, don't worry about it too much, don't beat yourself up too much about if you really want that car. But if we do use it in Krishna's service, then the desire will become purified, right? That desire for name and fame and, adoration. And that will become purified, right? Like Dhruva Maharaj, he was like, I want a kingdom greater than my father's. I want, my stepbrother to be burning in envy when he sees the extent of my kingdom after the way they treated me, So then he goes and worships the Lord to get this kingdom, and then by the time the Lord actually appears to him, and he's so happy with the darshan of the Lord, and he's been so purified by his spiritual activities that he doesn't even want the kingdom anymore. And the Lord's like, no, you take the kingdom anyway. So sometimes that happens. But yeah, when we connect things to Krishna, it gradually purifies the material part away, and we become pure. Okay? Good. Anything else? Okay, so one thing that I want to share with you, we've been reading a lot of verses from the Bhagavad Gita. So recently, last year, I published a book, which is on the table over there. It's called The Living Gita. The Living Gita. So what this is it's a complete translation and commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And it's I did this after many years, decades of distributing Prabhupada's books, and I would go to the same towns again and again where I distributed books and meet people and, oh yeah, I got the book from you last time, the what's that, something, whatever, Bhagavad Gita. And I say, oh, great, did you read it? And they're like, well, I tried. I read maybe the first couple pages and I didn't understand a lot and it was difficult. So after hearing that, time and time again, I was thinking, people need to read the Bhagavad Gita, it's not enough to just have it in the house and, read the first page and, okay, they got something, but people need to understand the Bhagavad Gita. This Krishna's message is so important. And so I thought, I really have to do this for Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada wanted to give the Gita to the world, and people need to be able to read it and understand it. So I basically wrote a complete version of the Bhagavad Gita, which is very easy to understand, accessible, relatable, and with a lot of emphasis on practical application, so we know how to live the Gita. Right? So this book is, so far it's been received very well. Everybody loves this book. Even Prabhupada disciples are like, oh my God, I cannot put this book down. I try to structure it in such a way that it has a nice flow, so that it's in sections. So it's a little, I've taken like a few verses together and then commented on them all together. And there's headings for each section, and there's also like little links from one section to the next so that you understand how this set of ideas is related to the next set of ideas, so that everything flows nicely and the links between ideas. So it's a very, very nice book. It's especially when I wrote it, I was thinking of young people, right? Like kind of like the millennial Gen Z generation. Because the world has changed so much, since the time when Prabhupada wrote his Gita, and life is different, and the things that they think about are different, the ways that they might apply it nowadays are different. So this book is very nice for young people, or just for anyone who really wants to, understand the Bhagavad Gita very deeply and how to apply its principles in their life. Right now we're using this Bhagavad Gita. We have a program in Radhakalachandji Temple called Bhakti Circle. So we have people that come, it's every Saturday night, and we use this book as our text for the program. So in the table of contents, you can look at it. I've given like headings to each section. So each week we take one heading. So there are things like the language of the soul, principles of freedom, finding a guru, changing your destiny, who's responsible for suffering, the peace formula, living a balanced life, things like that. So we take one heading each week and we use that as our topic of discussion. Someone presents and then we discuss. And so it's very good for structuring programs and for outreach programs or in-reach programs or Sunday school programs for teenagers, or for yourself or your kids, or gifts for people who are new to Krishna consciousness, that they're going to understand it. So we've got a bunch of copies over there, and and please come over and get yourselves a copy or multiple copies, and I can autograph them for you. And my offering to you. Hare Krishna.